I should have locked the door. I always do. But that night, something in the air felt different. Heavier. Like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to crack. The storm outside had rolled in fast. Violent winds slicing through the trees like they were paper, lightning clawing across the sky like it had a vendetta. Power flickered. Systems stalled. The observatory was hanging by backup reserves, just enough to keep the core warm and the perimeter shields alive. I was alone. At least, I thought I was. My name is Brian Maddox, 32. Engineer. Technician. Ex-research liaison for the Interstellar Contact Division. That last part's not as exciting as it sounds. It mostly meant I stared at data streams and long-range signals that never said much of anything, until they did. And then, everything changed. 3 years ago, Earth made first contact. Quiet, indirect, unacknowledged. A drifting signal from beyond Pluto, encoded with patterns no human had ever written. We answered it. They didn't reply. Or so we believed. Until tonight. It started with a chill. Not the kind you get from cold air, but something deeper, like something ancient brushing across your skin. I turned toward the entrance. She was already inside. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. She walked in like she belonged here. Like this was her home, not mine. Tall, radiant. Skin like soft obsidian beneath moonlight, hair the color of snow at midnight. Her eyes, violet, glowing faintly, not from light, but from within. And ears, pointed, graceful, like the elves from old human myths, though there was nothing mythological about the way she watched me. Studied me. There was intelligence in her gaze. Not curiosity, certainty. She had found who she was looking for. She didn't speak at first. Just stepped closer, the silence between us stretching taut. I stood frozen, halfway between defense mode and disbelief. Then she smiled. "You're Brian," she said, softly, as if the name was something she'd spoken 1,000 times before. "How do you know that?" I asked, not backing away, but not stepping forward either. She tilted her head, studying me. "Because I chose you." That should have been the moment I activated the alarm. Sent a signal to command. Protocol 7. Non-terrestrial contact, unregistered presence. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I asked her name. Amani. Just Amani. No family name. No title. No designation. Just that single, haunting word that somehow felt like it belonged in my mouth even before I said it. She walked past me, calm, unhurried, like time didn't apply to her. She paused at the edge of the bed. Looked at it. Then looked at me. "One night," she whispered. "No rules." I stared at her. My heartbeat wasn't racing. It was silent, as if my body had gone beyond adrenaline and entered something else entirely. Something deeper. "What does that mean?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just sat down, elegantly, crossing one leg over the other, her eyes still on mine. The wind outside howled louder, but I no longer heard it. The world beyond those walls had ceased to exist. It was just her and me. And a question I didn't dare ask. Why me? She leaned back on her hands. Her skin shimmered subtly, catching light from no visible source. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. I felt like replying, but what was there to say? She wasn't what I expected either. Not even close. She hadn't come to hurt me. That much was clear. But she hadn't come in peace either. Amani hadn't come with answers. She'd come with a challenge. And before the night was over, I'd have to decide if I was brave enough to accept it. She didn't belong here. That much was obvious. Everything about Amani contradicted the room around her. The harsh steel walls, the glowing status panels, the hum of machinery designed by minds still centuries away from understanding what she truly was. And yet, she sat there like she had grown from the ground beneath this place. Like the technology and silence had grown around her. I remained standing. Half in shadow, half in awe. The part of my brain still grounded in Earth protocol screamed that this was a violation, a breach of sovereignty, a cosmic red flag. But the part of me that still dreamed as a child, that still believed in wonder, kept me rooted. Why now? I finally asked. My voice felt too human in the space between us, flawed, uncertain. Why tonight? She looked up. Her gaze didn't just meet mine, it reached inside me, like a gentle invasion of thoughts I didn't know I had. Because this is the moment you stopped looking at the stars, and started asking why they look back. Her words weren't metaphor. I knew it instantly. They were literal. This wasn't a random encounter. This had been planned, calculated, measured against time and circumstance. You've been watching me, I said. Yes, she replied simply. Not just you. Your species. But you stood out. I wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or terrified. Maybe both. She stood then, gracefully, like movement was optional for her, not necessary. She crossed the room without a sound. I couldn't even hear her breathing. When she passed one of the console screens, the system flickered, pixels twisting into shapes and patterns that didn't belong. I glanced at the monitor. Not interference. Language. You did that, I said. The distortion. That wasn't static. Amani turned to face me, just a few feet away now. Your computers speak in numbers. Ours speak in memory. I blinked. What does that even mean? She smiled. You feel something when you look at me, don't you? Even before I said a word. I hesitated. The answer was yes. But I wasn't about to admit that to someone, something that had just appeared from the void. I don't know what I feel, I said. That's the beginning of truth, she whispered. She reached out then. Her fingers hovered just above my chest. I could feel the warmth of her, pulsing like starlight through skin. Not burning, not cold, just alive in a way I had never known. I'm not here to take, she said. I'm here to understand. But I can't if you guard everything. There was no threat in her tone. No command. Just a quiet certainty that made resisting feel absurd. I lowered my voice. Understand what? What makes a human more than muscle and instinct, she said. What you give. What you deny. What you risk for things you don't fully grasp. She was close enough now that I could see faint ridges in her skin, like threads of light under the surface, shifting with her emotions. Her eyes weren't just violet. They held depth, galaxies swirling behind pupils like they were windows into a place I would never reach. You could have chosen anyone, I said. Why me? She paused for a moment, her expression softening. Because you're broken, she said. The words cut deeper than I expected. I almost turned away. But something about the way she said it, not with pity, not with judgment, just fact. Everyone's broken, I muttered. Most hide it, she replied. You buried yours under data, numbers, equations. You tried to solve your pain. I swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong. The isolation, the long nights, the obsession with signals and stars and silence. It had all been a distraction, a refuge. You think that makes me special? I asked. No, Amani said. It makes you honest. For a moment, neither of us moved. The room hummed around us, filled with quiet tension. Then she reached behind her back and produced something small, an object no larger than a coin, smooth and dark, with a shimmer like oil on water. She pressed it to the center of my chest. A sensation rippled through me. Not pain, not pleasure, but memory. Not my own. Flashes, scenes, voices, emotions not tied to my life, but vivid all the same. A planet of silver trees and floating stone towers. Skies of endless twilight. Children laughing in a language I couldn't name. And then silence. Cracks in the sky. Fire raining down. Her world ending. I gasped and stumbled back. The vision vanished. The object fell to the ground, inert again. What was that? I asked, breathless. A gift, she said. A fragment of what I left behind. She stepped closer once more. I didn't come here to seduce you, Brian. That part was never the mission. But when I watched you, I began to wonder if maybe one night was enough to make two worlds less afraid of each other. I searched her face for deceit. Found none. "I don't know what you want from me," I admitted. She leaned in, her voice barely audible now. "Not everything needs to be understood. Some things just need to be felt." Before I could answer, she turned, walked back to the bed, and lay down as if the room had always been hers. She looked over her shoulder at me, calm and certain. "One night," she repeated. "No rules." The line wasn't a question. It wasn't even an invitation. It was a shift in everything I thought I understood about existence, and it had already begun. She lay there like she had every right to. The bed creaked softly beneath her, but she didn't shift to accommodate it. She let it adjust to her. Like the world itself would bend around her presence if it had to. Amani didn't glance away. She held my gaze with a calm certainty, her expression unreadable but far from cold. She wasn't challenging me. She was waiting for something. A choice maybe. Or perhaps just a recognition of a truth that had already taken root between us. I didn't move. Something about the silence between us had changed. It wasn't awkward or uncertain. It was deliberate. A space charged with unspoken understanding, more powerful than any spoken promise. And in that moment I realized something. There was no contract. No mission protocol. No warning message from above. There were only the two of us, and the unwritten agreement that had begun the moment she said my name. I crossed the room slowly. Not out of fear, out of reverence, like I was approaching something sacred, not fragile. The air felt denser now, warmer, filled with something I couldn't name. Not tension. Not desire. Something older than both. When I reached the edge of the bed, I hesitated. "I don't know what happens if I say yes," I said. Amani tilted her head slightly, her silver hair falling like liquid light across her shoulder. "Neither do I." That stopped me cold. I hadn't expected that. Honesty. Vulnerability. "You're not in control of this?" "No," she said. "And that's why I'm still here." 1,000 questions swirled in my head, but all of them boiled down to one. "What do you really want from me?" She sat up, slow and fluid, and placed her hand beside mine. Her touch was featherlight. Barely there, but I felt it everywhere. "I've seen how your kind negotiates," she said. "With treaties, laws, caution. You build walls before bridges." She looked down at our hands. Her skin against mine didn't feel alien. It felt like something I'd always known but had forgotten. "But not tonight," she whispered. "Tonight, we are only what we choose to be." It was more than words. It was a vow, mutual, fragile, and terrifying. The unwritten agreement wasn't about trust. It wasn't even about desire. It was about surrender. Not to her. Not to me. But to the unknown. She pressed her palm to mine. The light beneath her skin pulsed gently in rhythm with something, either her heartbeat or mine. I couldn't tell. Then something else happened. Images flickered at the edge of my vision again, not like the earlier flood of memory, but glimpses, echoes, possibilities. A version of myself standing in a ruined city under two suns. Amani beside me. Fighting. Surviving. Another version, older, grayer, sitting on a quiet alien hill, surrounded by children not quite human, not quite not. A third image, her face, centuries from now, looking up at Earth through a dusty spaceport window, smiling with a sorrow I couldn't comprehend. Visions of futures. Paths that hadn't yet been chosen. Or maybe ones that had, and were now unraveling. I pulled my hand away, breathing hard. "Is that what this is? A test? A timeline correction?" "No," she said gently. "It's an invitation." I sat on the bed across from her. To what? To exist without boundaries for one night. To stop asking what we're supposed to be and just be. It sounded simple. But it wasn't. For me, every part of life had been rules. Structure. Logic. Code. You don't touch what you don't understand. You don't invite the unknown into your bed or your heart. But Amani was not chaos. She wasn't danger wrapped in beauty. She was a mirror, and what she reflected back at me was someone I didn't know I could become. We talked for hours, about her world, about mine, about war and memory and the things both species had done to survive. She didn't reveal everything, but she didn't lie either. There was a transparency to her half-truths, like she was letting me fill in the blanks at my own pace. I told her about the satellite crash when I was 16, how it killed my father, how I'd spent years blaming the stars for being silent, how I ended up building the machines that listened harder than I ever could. She listened without judgment, without commentary, just listened. And somehow that did more for me than any explanation ever had. Eventually we grew quiet again. Not from exhaustion, from understanding. She lay back once more, eyes on the ceiling. "What do you want, Brian?" The question hit harder than I expected. No one had ever asked it without conditions, without expectations. I thought about it. Not safety. Not answers. Not even clarity. "I want to feel," I said. For once, without shielding myself from it. Amani smiled, small and real. "Then you're already doing more than most humans ever have." She pulled the blanket back, not as an offer, but as an act of inclusion. I joined her. We didn't touch. Not immediately. We didn't need to. The proximity said more than any gesture could. One night. No rules. Not an invitation to lust. Not even to intimacy in the physical sense. But to exist beside something unknowable and not fear it. To let vulnerability replace defense. To accept that some connections defy species, language, and logic. We lay there in silence, heartbeats slowly aligning. Eyes open, breathing steady. And in that shared quiet, the unwritten agreement became something else. Not a deal. Not a promise. A beginning. I didn't fall asleep that night. Even as Amani rested beside me, eyes closed, expression peaceful, my mind wouldn't settle. The room was quiet, but inside me, a storm brewed. One night. No rules. That was the agreement. But what happens when a night stretches longer than time was meant to hold? When something deeper begins to grow in a place where nothing was supposed to take root? I turned slightly to look at her. In sleep, her features softened. The faint glow beneath her skin had dimmed to a pulse, like the slow flicker of a distant lighthouse, guiding something home. She wasn't human. And yet, I had never felt more seen. Was it possible to know someone across the divide of galaxies, histories, and DNA? Was it possible that connection didn't require similarity, only understanding? She stirred. Slowly. Eyes opening, not startled, just aware. "You didn't sleep," she said. No. She didn't ask why. I think she already knew. "I thought this would feel clearer in the morning," I admitted. She sat up, the blanket falling to her waist. "Clarity is a myth," she said. "Only decisions are real." There it was. The truth I had been avoiding since the moment she first said my name. This was never just about a night. She hadn't come all this way just to feel. She came to offer me a choice. One that stretched far beyond biology, beyond culture, beyond Earth itself. I got up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was still dark, but stars blinked down, watching. Waiting. "When you leave," I asked quietly, "what happens?" "I disappear." She stood behind me, her reflection beside mine in the glass. Not looming. Not pressuring. Just present. "And if I go with you?" She hesitated. That alone scared me more than any answer could have. "Then you become something else," she said. I turned to face her. Something alien? Something more. The silence between us stretched, and I could feel the gravity of the moment press against my chest. Every instinct in me screamed to analyze, to weigh the risk, to demand guarantees. But that wasn't the kind of decision this was. This wasn't about logic. It was about identity. "Why me?" I finally asked. "Because you listened," she said. "Because you didn't turn away when you saw what I was." And because she stepped closer, close enough for me to feel her warmth. Because something in you is already part of something greater. That should have sounded like destiny. But it didn't. It sounded like truth. Quiet, small, and terrifying. I'm not a hero, I said. I'm not even brave. Neither am I. Her voice cracked just slightly. And in that fracture, I saw it. The weight she carried. The fear. The isolation. The hope that she had buried under elegance and grace. She wasn't offering me salvation. She was asking not to be alone. And that made it real. I looked around the room, at my books, my clothes, my worn-out boots by the door. Every piece of my life, built brick by brick. Safe. Familiar. Earthbound. And then I looked at her. Every law of survival said I should stay. But what is survival without living? I need to know something, I said. If I go with you, do I lose who I am? She stepped even closer, lifting her hand to rest against my chest, above my heart. No, she whispered. You find the rest of who you've always been. And with that, the decision stopped feeling like a leap. It felt like surrender. The good kind. The kind where you stop fighting who you are. The departure wasn't dramatic. There were no blinding lights. No spacecraft roaring to life. Only silence and a gentle parting of air. I walked beside her through the woods, beneath the cover of a sky that had never felt more alive. The stars above seemed to rearrange themselves. A signal. A path. A reminder that the universe was not empty. It was just waiting. We stopped at the edge of the forest. The air shimmered faintly, the way heat does off a desert road. But colder. Denser. Like stepping through that veil would mean leaving behind gravity itself. She looked at me one last time. You don't have to, she said. I know. I took one last glance behind me. Not at what I was leaving. At who I had been. Then I stepped forward. The shimmer parted. And the stars welcomed me like an old friend. Space isn't silent. That's the first lie I unlearned. It hums. Vibrates. Breathes. Like a living organism with a pulse buried beneath layers of darkness. It isn't empty. It's waiting. We soared past Jupiter 3 Earth days ago. The ship isn't built for grandeur. It's lean, quiet, alive in ways I still don't understand. Not mechanical, not biological, something in between. It responds to thought, feeling. Especially hers. Amani walks like she belongs to it. Maybe she does. Maybe they built it for her, or maybe it grew around her like armor. I still don't know. I do know this. I never asked her to take me back. Not once. And she never asked me to stay. That was our second agreement, never spoken aloud. The first was the night she stepped into my bed. The second, this was no rescue. This was a choice. We don't speak much now, not because we've run out of words, but because silence has changed meaning. In space, silence isn't absence. It's presence. It's intimacy without pressure. Understanding without noise. She teaches me pieces of her language when I ask. Not with grammar, but feeling. Emotion as syntax. Memory as vocabulary. I taught her how to lie under a blanket and watch old movies on a tablet I smuggled aboard. She loved Casablanca. She cried when Ingrid Bergman said goodbye. You humans, she said softly. Always choosing love and loss together. Why not both apart? I didn't have an answer. Maybe we're addicted to the tragedy of goodbyes. Maybe we think the pain makes the love more real. Or maybe we never expect it to last. We've stopped now. Orbiting a moon without a name. Her people call it Thaler, which means between places. A resting point, she says. A decision marker. It feels like Earth, almost. Cold air, low gravity. Silent stone valleys painted in silver and blue. We walk the surface without suit. The ship cloaks itself behind a jagged ridge, like a shy animal curled beneath rock. I know why we're here. I've felt it for days. There's another decision waiting. Another ending or another beginning. We sit at the edge of a crater, feet dangling over centuries of frozen dust. The stars hang low here, thick and golden, like they've come to listen. You can go back, she says. 3 words. I feel the weight of them crack open a vault I didn't know I had inside me. How? I ask. She looks at me, not with sorrow, not with anger, just that infinite calm she wears like skin. There's a portal on the far side of the valley. We don't open it often. It leads back, not just to Earth, to your time, to the moment before I found you. I stare at her, the words sinking like stones in deep water. The moment before? I echo. You could return to your bed, your quiet life. All of this, would unravel like a dream. I search her face, looking for malice, for manipulation. There's none. Would I remember? She hesitates. That's all the answer I need. No, she says eventually. Not in full. But something would linger. A scent. A flash. A voice you can't place. A breath catches in my throat. You'd erase me. No, she says gently. I'd set you free. We stay in silence for a long while. Below, wind stirs the dust. A single light blinks on the horizon. The gate waiting. I try to picture myself back there, Earth. My bed. A cup of coffee. An inbox full of unread data reports. My neighbor's cat meowing through the walls. The comfortable ache of normalcy. And I realize something that terrifies me. That version of me would never know the stars felt like this. Would never hear a voice like Amani's whispering in the dark. Would never ache like this, beautiful, impossible ache of knowing you've seen something eternal, and now you must choose what to do with that truth. She reaches for my hand. Whatever you choose, she says, it will not make you lesser. I look at her. This being from another world, another war, another way of existing. And I know, deep in a place that language can't touch, I love her. Not in the way humans write love songs. Not with promises or conditions or even shared futures. But in the way stars burn for eons without asking to be seen. I love her because she was never mine to keep. She was only ever mine to understand. I don't go to the portal. I go back to the ship. And when she joins me, I don't say anything. Neither does she. But her fingers close around mine in the quiet, and I know my answer has already been written into the stars. Now I live between names. Not human. Not alien. Just Brian. A man who chose not certainty, but wonder. A man who fell in love not with a species, but with possibility. They'll tell stories about us, maybe. On Earth. On Thaler. On moons we haven't found yet. Some will end with me going home. Some with me lost to time. Some will swear she never existed at all. But I'll know the truth. One night, she whispered, no rules. She meant more than I ever imagined. Because some rules are written in fear. And some are broken by love.